Welcome back to another episode of the Authentic Man podcast. I'm your host, David Chambers, and the strangest thing happened. I recorded almost all of this episode and then something crashed and it didn't record, so I'm back again. If this is the first time you listen to me, I'm a men's dating, relationship, and intimacy coach. I really specialize in working with men to really create great relationships and help them really create and maintain incredible relationships across the board. I'm coming off the back of running a beautiful workshop with my partner, Orsa. Some of you obviously know her, have heard of her. She's been on the podcast numerous times now. And yesterday it was called, the workshop was called The Art of Deep Connection. And it was just stunning to see how 12 strangers come into a room, nervous, anxious, fearful, worried, a bit like going on a date. And by the time they left in the evening, they felt immense connection and love and understanding for each other as men and women. And they just expressed themselves so beautifully, and they connected in such wonderful ways through the exercise and so forth we gave them. And it's just beautiful to see what's possible when we are in a space that creates the conditions for connecting, and teacher takes us back to our essence. That is part of us. Our essence is creating deep connection. So it was really beautiful to experience that and run that and hold that. So really, if you're listening to this and you were there, then much appreciated. I know some of you listen to this on your long drives. So I see you, and I really am deeply proud of what I saw from the men and women in the workshop. Like, there was really a desire to understand, a really desire to connect, a really desire to be vulnerable and open and be attuned and be really compassionate to each other. It was really, really beautiful to see and observe. But I'm going to get into this bits and pieces now. It's really about how to stop yourself from messing up great relationships. We have this habit of self-sabotage. Some of that self-sabotage occurs due to emotional reactivity, where the relationship is getting deeper, for instance, especially if we are avoidant or we're scared of intimacy. If the relationship is getting deeper and more close and more loving, and it can start to go somewhere, we might self-sabotage it by overreacting to something, becoming overly emotional and try and ruin the relationship by breaking it down, cheating even, going missing, whatever. We react to some emotional state about the relationship and we try and ruin it because we were afraid of where it's going. Or we might self-sabotage it because we're afraid. We're like, oh, it's getting deeper, they might leave me, and then we sabotage it in that way. So if those are two ways we sabotage things in our relationships. It's really important to know that, because that's ruined my own relationships and some of my clients who I'm now working with as well. But I'm going to talk more about what it is we can do when we're in the relationship to really make it good, like to stop ourselves from ruining things. And I'm going to whistle stop through these things because there's a number of them here, 15 or so, and I might even throw into more as I'm talking, because these are things that I see in couples whose relationships are transformed. Like, some of my clients are men who come to me on the brink of the end of their relationship, whether that is their partners have cheated, there's been some sort of infidelity, or their partners have said they want a separation, right? Or they're just at that point where I can't do this anymore because it's not working. We need to change something. They've come to me. We've worked together for a number of months, and they've implemented not just what I've said here, a lot of other things as well, some emotional work and so forth, and turn the relationships around. Like, I've seen people getting married, people moving country, people getting engaged, right? Or their relationships being the best they've ever been. We're talking people who've been married for 20 plus years. So this stuff works, and I've seen it work time and time and time again. So I'm going to give it all to you, and I'm going to kind of whiz through these, as I said. The first thing on this list, right? If you want to have a good relationship, you want to have a relationship that is solid, is going somewhere, it feels good, is healthy communication. It's so important that we have healthy communication. And healthy communication is actually not that easy because we're not taught how to do it. I've got whole episodes about healthy communication, but the key to healthy communication is the ability to listen. Yeah. Active listening, not listening from the perspective of our assumptions about our partner, like, oh, they're always nagging, or they're all really needy, or they want to run off with other people, and we listen to everything they say through that lens and react to the lens less than not. We react to the lens of them, of what we imagine them to be, and not the person themselves. It's also to have respectful conflict, right? Respectful conflict being You may not stand for name calling or swearing or shouting or even, throwing things and stuff like that. Healthy communication where both people are listening to each other to be heard, to understand, and remembering you're on the same side. And this is actually probably the hardest thing to do, because we grew up in environments that don't have healthy communication, so we don't know how to do it. So this is really key. And I do a lot of training with men around this healthy communication piece, and couples as well. The second thing I'm going to talk about to create great relationships, to not ruin great relationships, right, is to lead and give direction to your relationship. Men, you need to lead and give direction to your relationship. So many women really are very feminine beings, and they spend a lot of time leading in their lives, in their work, or even with children, right? A mother is a leader. She can't help be a leader, but you can still lead the relationship. And I see a lot of men shirking that responsibility, afraid to take up leadership in a relationship, afraid to give it direction. And that direction might just be like emotional direction, like I love you and I really want this to go somewhere, or that leadership might be experiential, like taking yourselves to new experiences. They could be workshops to improve your relationship. That could be holidays to like spend more time one to one together to allow things to get deeper. It's almost like there's a fear of deepening the relationship in case you make a mistake, you get something wrong, or it doesn't work out, right? And I know that as a case, I speak to a number of men who have that. But it's so important you lead and give direction to your relationship. The third point I have here is about vulnerability. You have to bring a range of vulnerability. Vulnerability isn't just your sadness and your unhappiness, your depression, your fear, and your worry. It's also your leadership, because it's vulnerable. It takes courage, and it's vulnerable to lead and take action when there could be mistakes that are made. There could be criticism that come your way, right? Like it could be vulnerable to say to your partner, hey, you know, I'd really love to go to this workshop about BDSM. It's vulnerable because you're showing in that moment that there's desire you have to try something like BDSM or kink or so forth. And you could be rejected in that moment. There's vulnerability in bringing that. And then you bring that to your partner and you found something the two of you could go to. And you may explain why you want to try it, how you think it help the relationship, make your relationship better, or be a new experience. That's vulnerable in and of itself. Vulnerability also is bringing, the difficulties and the pains you're experiencing. And I think it's really important as men that we do this, but, and I had a big but in here, if you have no one else in your life and the only person you bring your emotional stuff to is your partner, right? And you bring it in a way that you want her to kind of like give you answers and lead you to answers to your problems, right? You're kind of using your partner a little bit like your therapist, right? You want them to almost psychoanalyze you, so then you can then make sense of what's going on in your life. And if you are always doing that and your only person in relation your life to bring these sorts of issues and stresses and worries is your partner, you have to be really mindful you're not turning your partner into a therapist, because it puts a huge emotional toll and weight on a partner to be your partner and to be your therapist and to be your best friend and to be your lover, right? And all the other things that we do, right? We can't make our partners everything. I know that's going to sound like a bit of a side. We cannot make our partners everything. It's a lot of weight for them to carry. And this leads into the fourth point. So what we need to do is find friends or men, and particularly men who we can trust to talk to about our relationship and our relationship issues and our life issues, who can give us honest feedback. And I say honest feedback that will tell you that you're being a miserable a miserable git when you need to be told, or that you need to show up and work harder in your relationship, or you need to overcome your apprehensions about being intimate, right? You don't want your friends to be people who are just like, oh, it's all her fault, women are always naggy, they're always complaining. That's not useful feedback. That's not useful friendship. So finding a good man or men that you can go to, that can be a coach, that can be a therapist, but have people in your life, because it'd be absolutely vital to the health of your relationship. It's important. The next bit is what's really important to create great relationships is to have a relationship vision, to have a picture of where the two of you want this relationship to go. Where do you want the relationship to go? Do you want to create a legacy business? The two of you, the CEOs of the business. Is your relationship about creating family and community? Like, what is a vision for your relationship? Having a vision, a shared vision that you can discuss and talk about, is really powerful. It shows that you have deep awareness for the future and what you're trying to create, and you're connected to your purpose and your desires. Another point that a lot of men fall over and actually causes the demise of really good relationships is they are not present, right, to and aware of the state of the relationship. I'll say that again. Men are not present and aware of the state of the relationship and how their partner is feeling about the relationship as well. They are so in their own experience of like, oh yeah, everything's good, everything's good, and they're just ignoring their partner. They're not hearing their partner's complaints. They're not hearing their partner's gripes. They're not hearing their partner's desires. They're not attuned to feeling their partner's wanting more or wanting to experience different things. And then 6 months, 12 months later, 1 year later, a number of things are happening. If your partner's cheating on you, right? Or your partner's getting emotional intimacy from other men, or your partner is really distant, grumpy, fed up. And then the next thing that happens is your partner wants to leave, and it feels sudden to you because you haven't had the presence and awareness to pay attention to the state of your relationship, right? You haven't. You've just been in your own world, you know, living your routine of life. And this is really important because I've seen this time and time again ruin really good relationships. The next point here for this is around following your own purpose, dreams, and purpose. It's really important for you to do that, right? To follow your own purpose and dreams inside of your own life. It might seem counterintuitive because sometimes our purpose will go against the grain of our relationship or take time away from it, right? But this isn't just for the good of relationship. It puts you into a better state and energy if you're following what's meaningful to you and you bring that energy back into relationship, and that feeds and nourishes the relationship. Accountability. If we want great relationships, right, and we want to stop ruining perfectly good relationships, we have to hold ourselves and our partners to the agreements that we have made, right, about our relationship and how we treat each other, right? And this can include our vision. So what does that look like? That might be you have an agreement about how you talk to each other, right? How you discuss things together. It might have an agreement around the amount of quality time that you spend together, right? You might have agreements around the non-negotiables for your personal life, right? And you hold each other accountable to those things. So that's holding yourself and that's holding her to these things as well. So say, for instance, one of your non-negotiables is going to the gym twice a week. So you're holding yourself to that, right? Now, if you stop going to the gym twice a week, you got to look at yourself and go, okay, this is an agreement I have. Or maybe you have an agreement in relationship on, going on a date night every 2 weeks. And then it starts to fade away, right? That's an agreement that now's been broken. You bring your presence and your awareness of the state of your relationship, a couple points before, and you go, hey, I've noticed that we're not doing this thing. We're not doing our date nights like we said. Can we start booking these back in? Because I know this is really important for both of us. This is something we agreed on. And sometimes it might be a hard conversation because one of you's gonna be like, oh yeah, I noticed that. But it's like this, it means you're a man of your word. You have accountability and integrity. Another point here, and this is a bit of a spectrum one around these having great relationships, is practicing freedom, interdependence, and closeness, right? Freedom in terms of giving each other freedom to live your life and enjoy yourselves, right? While also having interdependence, like an interdependence between the two of you, right? You looking after each other, each other's needs, helping each other out, right? Interdependence is the highest level from code. You got like dependence, children are dependent, teenagers and early 20 people try and be independent because they think that's the pinnacle. And men who never really grow up, they're just independent. I don't need anyone type of attitude. Interdependence is what makes us into incredible leaders and people that can create amazing organizations and communities because we become interdependent. Every great society has to be interdependent. And then closeness, you also need in a relationship because you need that intimacy to foster that love and so forth. Right. The next point here is around something that's really vital, right? And I see a lot of men avoiding this part of relationship, right? It steps into and it linked to the piece about leadership is taking the initiative to solve, fix, and resolve issues we see in our relationship. You engage your awareness, right, and presence. You notice like, oh, there's a problem in the relationship. Well, this is something that I'm not feeling or she's not feeling, and then you bring your healthy communication to your partner or your own thinking, like you're like, okay, I have a solution for this. There's a number of solutions for this. This is my thoughts. And you bring your healthy communication to your partner, be like, I've noticed this thing in our relationship, this challenge, this difficulty we're both experiencing. I feel like it's causing me pain, you pain in these ways. This is a way I think we can do something about this. How do you feel about that? Yeah. Do you have any feedback about my solution? This is a co-created thing, right? But it's leading in that, taking initiative to do this, because too often as men, we see issues, we see problems, and then we bury our head in the sand. And then that problem comes to bite you years later when it's been festering, it's become a resentment, it's become like this festering, nasty, oozy wound in your relationship, and your partner's wanting to walk away because she doesn't feel like you care, or you know, she's leaving for another man. And I say this because I've seen this. I've seen this numerous times with guys, right? With these things. Another piece here is about avoiding neediness and codependence. And that's codependence is to me is like we needing our partner to be good for us to feel good. We're needing our partner to feel happy for us to feel happy. And that creates a codependence. And we want to like move away from that and be more interdependence, right? An important point here that we men need to really learn about, right, to have healthy relationships with ourselves, but also with our partners, is being able to express love in a range of ways, right? That can be through the 5 love languages. I'll let you Google those. I don't need to tell you about those, but like we might have particular ones that are really about how we are often, and it's about learning to love in other ways outside of that. So if yours is words of affirmation, that you give words of affirmation constantly, but your partner needs physical touch and quality time, then you start to express your love in physical touch and quality time. That physical touch piece, I just jump in, is like so important for a relationship because it helps foster intimacy and closeness. There's multiple types of intimacy. I've done a podcast about that before. Like there's, up to 8 types of intimacy, and we need to pay attention to all of them. Or I say it again, years down the line, your relationship falls apart and you don't know why. And what it is because you haven't been looking after the relationship. You haven't been expressing love passionately in the ways that your partner wants to receive it, or the way that you want to give it, out of fear, or whether it might be your attachment style and so forth. Another point here I've got is around emotional attunement and emotional resilience. We need to work on this. Emotional attunement is being able to sense and feel other people's feelings and emotions. And when you're in a relationship with someone, a close, intimate relationship, there must be emotional attunement, and we, must endeavor to improve our emotional attunement. If we don't engage our awareness and our presence, we become out of attunement. Or if we engage our presence and awareness too much, we become codependent, and we are like always focused on our partner's like happiness and how they're feeling too much. We become overly attuned and overly too sensitive and very reactive to them, right? So there's a balance to be had between those places of like your own sovereign being and feeling, but also having an understanding and feeling for your partner as well. And emotional resilience is really important when we are dealing with difficult times. Emotional resilience is our ability to kind of bounce back from difficult emotions, but also I see kind of this live resilience of like you're in conflict with your partner, they're angry, and being able to stay calm and grounded. You have the resilience to notice that you may have emotions of anger, frustration coming up, but you can stay present and grounded to them and what's being said, with the aim of like loving them through this moment and still holding space for them and not just reacting to the emotions you're feeling in that moment. Very, very important skill. The next point I have here, and this is one I see, and I work with a lot of men that struggle with this, that men that struggle with this piece to create great relations, great intimacy, is sexual confidence and co-creating of great sexual experiences, or leading great sexual experiences. Because of the way we interact with sex as men, be that through porn, be that through we feel like we should know how to do it already, be that our fear of discussing it, our shame around sex, the body shame, penis shame, like all these things, it can really erode our confidence sexually, and it erodes away our ability to co-create conversations about sex so that we can learn about our partner, what's her desires, how do they like to be touched, what do they like about what we do, what do they not like about what we do, right? But these are really important things to bring into our relationships, again, to have thriving, healthy relationship and not to fuck up good relationships as well. And the second to last piece here about, creating great relationships and not ruining them is really around honest feedback from your partner. I've set up this with my relationship, and I've seen it with my other couples that I coach, is setting up a time each month or every week even, where you can talk about your relationship. Yeah, what's going well, what's not going well, what do we want to change, what could be better, how do I want to be loved more deeply, where would I like to feel more love, how would we like to have more passion, right? How would we like to create more intimacy, right? These sorts of questions, so you can get feedback on where you're both at with the relationship. Because when your relationship suddenly starts to break down, or you feel it's not sudden. One of you's been feeling it for a while, but you've got no you've got no space to have feedback about how you're feeling about the relationship, right? And that means that you're blindsided. So when you have this monthly check-in, this weekly check-in, everyone gets the time and space to express openly and honestly with listening, like, oh, how am I feeling about the relationship? I would like this. This isn't going well. This is going really well. And you have always given your relationship the chance of being better and leading it to something more than on what you want it to be. So that's 15 points. And I'm going to add one more in. The last point here I'm going to make, and I think as men, we because we get so into our routines, we leave this piece out, and it means that our relationship starts to fall apart, is that our relationship needs to be a dynamic entity, right? It needs to have excitement. It needs to have deep feeling. It needs to have like love and surprise and gratitude, right? It needs to have a range of feelings and emotions and experiences. Sometimes as men, we're just, because we are like bobbing along at this okay, we think that's how the relationship should be. But it's like a relationship is a dynamic, ever-changing entity, but that exists kind of, you could argue, you exist inside with your partner that's also independent of you, that needs energy. So like, the date nights I mentioned, the new experiences, the holidays, like doing things together, trying new things together, this creates a dynamic relationship that is enjoyable for both people. Now, man, I've told you a lot of stuff there, which is good because you can take some of that away and action it straight away. But it's just, I keep seeing men struggling they're in relationships. Like I said, they're either just come out of relationships and it's all falling apart and I'm working with them, or it's just before it starts to fall apart, or, maybe the separation's been initiated in some way. Or if they're really, really smart and they're really clued on, men have come to me and they're like, hey, my relationship isn't feeling as dynamic and amazing as before, but I want it to be better. And we can start to take action on it. And I've seen relations being rescued, and it brings me joy when I hear from my clients after maybe a year after we've been working together, and they're telling me about it's better than it's ever been before. The intimacy they're having is really beautiful, and it wasn't happening at all 6-12 months later. So if this is you and you want to kind of step into this, maybe you're single and you're thinking, hey, I need to like get all these things in order before I get into my next relationship, then drop me a message. I think by email. I know my email is contained in the show notes, and we can have a conversation about what, helping you get to the place that you want inside a relationship or as a single man would look like for you. But until next episode, I say ciao, ciao.